All right, welcome to the Eric Tries to Art podcast. This week I have comedian, producer, podcaster, writer. I'd have to go to your website to figure out the rest of the extremely long list of things that you do, dude. Liam, now in your podcast, you say your last name extremely quickly. Is it McEneaney or McEneaney? Is that what is that E?
It's actually McEneaney, and I didn't realize I was saying it so fast. I'll bet.
Oh, I think you just muted yourself.
I muted my microphone. I apologize.
No, that's
yeah. Technician is not one of the things on my list of accomplishments.
I should have consulted your website before. That's okay. So typically, when I have comics on, it's like, what open mics have you been doing? What's sometimes I'll have a little bit extra work. You, my friend, sent me your website. I click on it, and I see your picture surrounded by famous people all over the place.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. When I put my website together, I didn't want to. I felt like that was bragging a little bit, but no, I do because it's like. I mean, where are you based out of?
Baltimore.
Baltimore. Okay, so it's probably less common that someone will just like if you email someone like Wyatt Snack and say, "Hey, do you want to do my show?" No, I'm serious. Like,
no, I know that's why it's
Harbor.
Funny. I'm just thinking about doing that. Yeah, totally. Hey, Wyatt, you should totally do it.
I'll pay you $25 if you come down to the harbor and do, or the waterfront. It's just easier. I mean, and a lot of those pictures, it's just like I've been doing shows forever. So people out now who are famous, I knew when they weren't so much,
Yeah.
But if you're, I mean, the whole point of the website is for me to get work, really, to advertise me. So in that sense, that's great.
It does a great job. I wasn't even looking at it more of like, how did you meet these celebrities as if you weren't in the same class as them? I'm saying like, these are pictures from actual things that you've done.
Yeah.
From movies and stand-up shows and podcasts. You're in that group. So like, you're very accomplished. Or, I mean, I know you're not a celebrity, but you're a very accomplished comedian in one sense or the other, which is not something I'm accustomed to, is my point. So thank you very, very much for coming. Oh yeah, absolutely.
No problem, man.
Yeah, so thank you for coming on.
I think you'll find a lot of comics will do podcasts if they don't have to leave their house.
That's, you know what? That should be my biggest selling point. So anyway, so tell me how you got, so the reason I brought up how the structure might end up being different is because you have a lot of really cool things that you've done that I'd love to ask you about.
Of course.
So if going back, just generally, what got you into comedy in the sense of, I mean, lots of people get into enjoying comedy. What was kind of the moment that comedy became that thing for you where you're like, no, this is something I have to do. This is different than all the things that I like. This is something I need to be a part of.
Well, it was always a calling for me. Like, in that sense, like, when I was a kid, I would watch stand-up comedy with my parents, and then I was a kid in the '80s, so like suddenly I would turn on the TV and there would be A&E's Evening at the Improv or A&E's Comedy on the Road, or and then Comedy Central launched, and I was able to watch stand-up all the time, and I kind of would watch these comedians and just say, I think that's what I want to do, and then. And then when I was 18, I joined 2 improv groups because I dropped out of high school, and I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do now? And I did improv for a year, but only because I was afraid to try stand-up, because I always wanted to do stand-up. And I was like, my thinking was, I was at 18. I was like, if it turns out I'm no good at stand-up, I'm going to have no life goals, and my life will be pointless.
That's a really good point that you bring up. Sorry to cut you. I just
no, go ahead.
A lot of people end up doing that where they go, I want to do this thing, but if I find out that I'm not good at this thing, I don't know how I'm going to handle it. Even though, which is silly, because if you're not good at it, you work and you get better at it. And you know what? We're all probably terrible at that thing we want to do it first, because nobody just gets to be good. And I know a lot of musicians who wasted a lot of years with good material because they didn't want to release it because they were worried about what would happen. So that's a very good point and kind of dance around it. Sorry, continue. That's
no. And then there's the other side of it, which is like people who will just be open micers for 15 or 20 years. I mean, that's something that I see, now that I've been in it so long, like with just no kind of encouragement whatsoever. Like, they don't get booked for anything, or they're not on TV or whatever, but they do it strictly because they love doing comedy, even though they're not terribly good at it. And like I said, like, very few people actually say like, oh, you should stick with it,
Yeah.
But
You painted the most depressing picture.
I'm sorry. It's just,
I don't care.
It's a hard business.
It's honest.
How long have you been doing stand-up now?
Oh, I stick to my podcasting as far as that. I did music for about 12 years. I'm still in bands, but that was my.
How old are you?
29.
Okay.
I look younger, right?
Yeah, you look
goofy as haircut.
I was talking to a teenager.
Oh yeah.
No, I see
Is it my oversized lollipop? Is that what it is?
I see the bass. That's a bass guitar right next to you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
yep.
Yeah, I mean, so then you understand, like, I got very lucky though, because when I started doing stand up, I started at downtown New York open mic scene. A lot of people who are famous now started in that scene. I mean, I'm definitely not famous, and I do know my role in terms. I mean, I'm on Reddit, looking for podcast opportunities. So, like, no offense, Nick Kroll isn't doing that right now.
Not right now.
Not right now.
No, I love Nick Kroll. Oh my god,
Nick Kroll's the best. Actually, he's very, very funny. But I was very lucky because I was in college, and while I was doing these open mics, and I got hired to do a college tour, like a college comedy game show tour called You Laugh, You Lose. Where it's just like there was an old game show called Make Me Laugh where they would get comedians, like 3 comedians, and they get on stage. And so we would be traveling from college to college, like 3 guys straight out of the open mic scene, not very good. Going to these colleges, doing our acts, which, would maybe get laughs, and then daring these kids to come up and sit on this chair. And, like these 3 guys who had just not made them laugh professionally.
Yeah.
Like daring them not to laugh at us for money, like they would spin a wheel and they would win like 20, 40, 60 bucks, whatever, like, a small amount of money like that. But if you're a college student, that's like your meal for the week. So
packed shows and bombed the whole time, but everybody was thrilled. Like,
well, that was exactly it. That's why we, this company that hired us, they hired us cheap, and that show still tours actually. But it was funny because one of the guys I went out on the road with is now a guy named John Viner, who's a writer on, like, he's an executive producer on Family Guy. Actually, he's like one of the big guys there. And another guy, like, he wrote his memoirs, and it got turned into a movie with Jonathan Silverman, I think. So it's just, I think Sinbad was on that tour like a decade before we were. So
a decade after you were, probably. I also, it's another. No, I'm shitting on people that I like. I love Sinbad. I think he holds up. He holds up.
It's so funny. I was just listening to him on Mark Maron's podcast, and he's talking about how, like, yeah, I know what Cosby did was wrong, but he's my guy.
And that's could be. So, what are your thoughts on that? Not the Cosby situation. I feel like everyone pretty much has the same thoughts on
right.
it.
Well, yeah, rape is wrong. That's,
I think, that's the motto of this podcast. So it's just coming on here. You're above suspicion.
I met you on Reddit, so you never know.
You know what?
You could be one of those fedora guys.
I did for a while when before I switched from live guests to Google Hangout guests. I was just talking to myself, and one of the episodes I did, I just maybe 5 minutes in started ranting about men's rights activists, and an hour and a half later, I was like, "Oh shit, post." That one I didn't promote too much on Reddit. I don't need my inbox blowing up like that.
I can imagine. That's but it's a weird community.
Well, how do you feel? Oh, sorry. Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
So, how do you feel about being able to, this is so funny because I talk about this on a music related podcast that I do a lot, because there are a lot of musicians who have abysmally horrible personal lives. How do you feel about separating the art from the artist? Like, how do you feel about that? Like, when something happens like that, how are you able to do so? Do you just do you boycott new stuff as well as, you know, just refusing to revisit the old stuff? Or are you able to really separate out the two and enjoy the art?
You know, I mean, the ideal, unfortunately, is for this stuff to come out after the artist is dead. You know, because like I was ideally. Ideally. I mean, ideally it would never happen. But like, you know, I was excited because Cosby was about to release a new special, and you know, unfortunately, I tried watching Bill Cosby himself, and I couldn't. I mean, it's funny. Like, I usually try to separate the art from the artist. You know, like a guy like Vincent van Gogh, he's been dead for a couple of centuries. So, like, you know, it's like Mark Antony says in that speech, the evil that men do is, you know, buried with them. But unfortunately, this is a case where it's so fresh, and we're still finding out so much information that I'll probably never be able to really enjoy watching or listening to Bill Cosby again. I've tried, because to me, he's one of the best comedians that ever lived. And, you know, his bit about trying to sleep with his brother Russell, you know, to my brother Russell, that like right. It turns out he just gave the guy a knockout drop. And
wait, oh Jesus!
No, but
could that be somebody's act, just recreating Bill Cosby bits, but like that was the real reality behind it?
People do that. I mean, that's like a kind of already a hack bit to be like, and now I'm going to put in roofie in your Jello pudding, pop. Like there's a comic, Tina Fey. And
I didn't mean like that, but yeah, I go on.
Tina Fey and Amy Poehler did that, like at the Golden Globes, and this comedian was like, "They stole my bit," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you could own a hack bit." That's everyone's bit.
Yeah, that's the world. That's the Satan's gift to the world. We all Well, it's so funny thinking about. I'm always constantly comparing music to comedy in art, business, marketing, everything, philosophy, culture. But like in this specific aspect, I know hell, the Beatles, the amount of dirt that's been dug up on the Beatles, even still living Beatles.
Right.
Well, particularly, maybe not as much as like Lennon per se, but
yeah, you might want to be careful. You gotta have some lawyers on retainer if you're going to go after Ringo.
Right. Yeah, well, Ringo's cool. My sister met him once. He gave her a bracelet. It was something. I don't know.
I have friends who've met Ringo, and they say Ringo's dope as hell.
He's the nice. She was working at a hotel he was staying at, and he was like the nicest person ever. And was just
right.
Yeah. So anyway, but like, I guess Beatles may be a shitty example, but it's like you find
Stones.
There you go. You find out some real dirt, or any band in the 80s,
right?
And all the horrible things that they've done, but still have legions and legions of fans,
right?
People seem to be so much easier to separate musicians from the music than it is separate comedy from the comedians.
Well, it's funny. Like up until maybe 10 years ago, bad boy behavior was kind of a rock and roll staple. Like people didn't respect a rock star unless they mistreated women, like fucked a groupie with a fish, or what, a mud shark or whatever it was. Or
I just listened to that the other day. Holy shit!
Listen to what?
There's a whole what was it? There's a friend of mine made me listen to a Frank Zappa record because I don't know what his problem is, but they had a whole thing where they were interviewing the guy who runs the hotel where, I forget which, was it Zeppelin? It was one of those bands paying somebody with them. Who was it?
Floyd. Yeah.
And interviewing the manager of the hotel regarding the incident.
Right.
For the record. So go on. That's so ridiculous. Cannot believe that's a thing.
But also, like, a lot of it was like, destruction against property, like Keith Moon driving a car into a pool or, like hurting yourself. There's very little like, serial rape in the rock and roll world. That's more likely to happen with comedians, oddly enough, than rock stars. Because rock stars, I mean, a lot of it is just boredom on the road, like doing a lot of drugs and driving around in a van or a bus for hours every day. I mean, that's where a lot of that behavior, I think, comes from, right?
Yeah, probably. So speaking of which, you were on Premium Blend. What was that like?
I was on okay. I was on Comedy Central's Premium Blend in 2001, and it was a huge thrill. I was 24, 25. No, I was 24. No, I was 25. It was right after my birthday. I'm sorry. I was 25 years old. I'd never done TV before. It was right before it was like 2001 before the Trade Center.
Yeah, okay. I was going to ask about
it was
that.
It was August 2001, right after my birthday, and right before the 9/11. So it was like a really happy time in New York City, and it was a huge thrill. I was really worried because I didn't audition for it. I had actually submitted a tape for a contest that Comedy Central had called Laugh Riots, and the grand prize was to get a spot on Premium Blend. And what happened was I didn't even get into the contest, but that tape got me a spot on Premium Blend anyway. So I didn't. So A, that'll show you what any contest means in comedy, and B, it was fine. But I was super worried because I felt like I didn't have to earn it, even though in hindsight that's a dumb thing to worry about. And then it was great. I mean, it was a blast. I hung out. My taping was the last taping on the last of 4 days of tapings, so I hung out backstage for 3 days with my buddies and watched them do TV. Yeah. Just hung out in the green room and met a lot of people. And then I did my set. I was really nervous right before, like standing backstage, listening to the comic before me, a guy named Jim Short, and Australian guy. And then as soon as I stepped on stage, all that went away because it was like, well, I was doing it. Like I had no choice but to just do it. And it went pretty well. I mean, I've watched it recently, and me doing well
in a post 9/11 world.
Yeah, because it's all about how much I love Osama bin Laden.
Yes. These terrorist groups get a bad rap, I think. What have they really done recently? It's a lot of talk.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. No, I mean, it was more like, I felt like the audience was very generous because audience at a TV taping will be more generous than most other audiences. I have a couple of jokes that I liked, but I mean, the nice thing about it is I was able to do those jokes and move on.
Yeah. God, that's really cool that you had those opportunities. I actually skipped over something I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
You said you did improv for a year before you switched to comedy. What was the thing that made you make that jump into stand-up? I'm sorry, stand-up comedy, not to imply that improv is not comedy.
Well, not the way I did it.
Burn. That would have been a great burn, but no, next time.
If you saw my improv, you would have asked what made me make the leap into being funny. The answer was, I mean, stand-up was the thing I always wanted to do, and I was afraid to do it. It was easier for me to get on stage and try to be funny surrounded by other people. But I had a buddy in one of my groups. His name was Kavika, and he was Hawaiian. And he, I just said that to explain his name, not to brag that I met a Hawaiian.
Brag. Yeah.
But
don't want to brag. I know a Hawaiian.
But he used to do these open mics, and I would go see him do a bringer show once in a while. And he was like, "Oh, there's this great open mic downtown. It's called Face Boys Open Mic at a theater at Surf Reality." And he was like, "I do stand up there," and he just started describing like the wild things he would see there. And then, like, it turned out there were a bunch of like arty young women, and I said, "Okay, well, I got to check that out." And I did, and I was so funny because what really pushed me was I watched an episode of Evening at the Improv right before I went. And it was just one guy after the other, dressed the same, doing the same kind of jokes in the same cadence. And I said to myself, like, these guys are not good and they're on TV.
Yeah.
Like, all I have to do is be as good as these guys, and I could be a professional stand-up comedian on TV. And I was right, it turned out. Like,
well,
but no, good.
I was going to say, when was the point where you were able to make that shift from doing it or being able to make a living off of comedy? At what point was that for you?
What an excellent question. Hopefully soon. No, I mean, it's like it's a gradual thing. It's, you know, when I was a kid, when I would watch these comics on TV, I'd see them on, like, you know, on A&E or on Comedy Central, and I'd say, like, oh, that guy must be rich and he must be doing well and he must have a house and a car. And it turns out, like, doing a TV show is just, you know, it's like a step. And then you have the other step of, like, okay, then you do this and then you do this. And then one day you're making, you know, like $20,000 a year, which is not a lot of money, but, you know, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky I have a good rent situation. And so I was like, there's just a point where you said, okay, well, I don't have to do. I think the day I was able to quit my crappy day job was when I was on Best Week Ever.
Okay, cool. Okay.
On VH1. And I mean, that didn't pay a lot. They paid like, understand again, I have a very good rent situation. So it paid like $500 a taping. And so that was enough money that I could quit my job. And then I was very lucky because then I had about a month of unemployment between that and my next job. And then I got a writing job, and like things snowballed. And so I have like gone back to having day jobs. You know, I worked after that, after the writing job. I had 6 months before I went on tour in Europe. And so I worked as an assistant to a lawyer. A couple of years ago, while I was, you know, I recorded my first album a couple of years ago, and, you know, I was paying rent with, by producing big shows, but I wanted to really like hold off because I wanted to focus on my album. And so then I took a job, and then actually, while I was thinking about like, well, how am I going to pay the rent? An opportunity opened up to work for the Red Cross in their Hurricane Sandy relief office. So like it was like kind of the perfect confluence of like. You
didn't want to call it the perfect storm?
No, not the perfect storm. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, no, that is unfortunately the best way to describe it. Yes, it was a perfect hurricane of opportunity and you know, and desire and need.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let me ask you about. So what years were the Best Week Ever seasons?
That I mean, those seasons lasted 3 months, and so it was all 2004 maybe. Okay.
Do you have any I mean, if you don't, that's fine.
That's fine.
It seems like every comic who I've heard on other podcasts who have been on Best Week Ever or a show of that nature tend to have a pretty decent story about how weird it was to be on that show. Did you have anything like that, or was it pretty normal for you? You just tell your jokes.
It was dope for me. I got laid a lot.
By who? Oh, because you're on TV.
Yeah, because you're on TV. I didn't understand like until you're on TV that, you know, like that happens. Women sleep with you. That's horribly.
How casually you said that. Yeah, I got laid a lot.
It's a very dirtbag thing to say. I mean, but I'm just saying, like, my experience with being on Best Week Ever was fantastic. You know, it got me out of this horrible day job I had. Is the easiest. Comedians who complain about it, I don't understand why, because it was literally the easiest gig on earth.
So I love that Pat Oswalt bit where he says it's the easiest gig, but like I couldn't do it. But it's so easy.
Well, that's the thing is like, if it was still on the air and they wanted me, I'd be doing it right now, because it was just like they send you a question. I mean, you've heard the Pat Oswalt bit, you know, they send you a questionnaire the night before, like you just write a bunch of punchlines, calling famous people idiots. You go in, and it's like it was filmed in this. The weirdest thing to me was it was just filmed in a tiny office, like corner office.
Really?
Yeah, in
the green screen, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And they had these big. It was as ghetto as it could be. They had big sheets of colored construction paper.
That wasn't even a green screen. It was just colored construction.
No, it was like colored construction paper. I think when Paul F. Tompkins took over, they added green screen, but it was just like big sheets of like red or orange or like you would get for a kid, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I imagine like an art teacher coming in with a giant roll.
That's exactly what it was. So they spent $100 on their set, and they never spent another dime.
Oh my god! And you know when they're not airing it, some intern has to use that office with the fucking red colored walls.
Oh no! I mean not walls, just a sheet, like a roller sheet. I'm sure they put the sheet away. Yeah, and so it would just be like me and a writer or a producer. Actually, the hardest part was doing the audition because, like everyone was there for the audition. Like there were 2 cameras and a bunch of writers and a bunch of producers and a bunch of VH1 executives. And so like everyone who's not me or the writer, producer, or cameraman, everyone else was just like standing in the back of the room talking to each other. Probably it's the only chance they get to actually talk to each other physically. And so I was just like, oh my God, I'm bombing. Oh my God, I'm doing horribly. Oh my God, I'm doing the worst.
Because no one was laughing? Is that why? Like,
yeah, no one was laughing. They were all talking to each other. And you know, when you're a comedian, if people are in the back talking to each other, it means you're eating it, you know? So I did it. And I thought I'd bombed, but I followed up with the guy and he said, well, the way it works is, you know, we filmed it and, you know, if it went well, if we want to use you, we'll air it on TV. And I was like, okay, well, they'll let me know then.
They didn't. They just aired it, and that's how you found out?
Well, how I found out was I got a call from a friend who was just like, oh, yeah, I was just in this bar, and you popped up on Best Week Ever. So then I had to call the guy and ask if I was going to get paid.
Like, yeah, I was going to say, where's my check?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Like, I did. I called him the next day. Well, I said it much nicer than that. I think I sent him an email, actually. But he was like, he sent me an email back a day later, like, oh, yeah, well, why don't you come in next week and fill out some forms, and then we'll tape you next week. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm on.
I guess I'm on Best Week Ever.
I guess I'm on Best Week Ever. But that's the thing is, like, they never told me I was a regular. Like, they were just called in. I'd get called in week to week. It was a little nerve-wracking. Yeah, and I was never, like, formally fired. You know, it's just like 2 weeks into not getting called in, I emailed this guy.
You were their side comic.
I was their side comic. They had a lot of those. And, in fact, the fact that I was able to stick it out for 2 full seasons was good. It was actually, for the stories I've heard, that was actually, I got. But yeah, I had to email this guy, and then like another couple days later, he emailed me, and he's like, "I'm sending this email from my home computer because I don't want anyone to know I'm saying, but yeah, the decision's been made that you're not going to be used anymore."
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So, but I have like I said, I have absolutely nothing against Best Week Ever because, like, it really, you know, before that, I was spent like a few years basically in the wilderness trying to find my next gig, you know. Yeah. Yeah. And so I feel very fortunate that they used me and that I was so visible and that, you know, people as a result, you know, it's funny because then I got this job writing for a show on Comedy Central, and I got that job because I was just walking, you know, I was broke, so I didn't have money to like I didn't want to spend. I should say I didn't want to spend money on mailing a tape, and at that time. You could just walk right up to their office, right up to their mailroom and hand them shit. So I just was walking in, and a guy from development, a guy named Dan Powell, who now works, actually he's now a producer, like an executive producer on Inside Amy Schumer.
Oh, cool.
But he was in development at the time, and he just happened to be coming in from lunch, and he was like, "Hey, you want to submit for this show? We're doing a show with Greg Giraldo. You might be good for it." And then, you know, I submitted, and I wrote part-time the first season, and I wrote full-time the second season. So
which show that was the post Tough Crowd show that they tried to make Tough Crowd and then switched, or which one was that?
That was just a pilot. That never went past, a pilot. That never went past pilot. This was no one has heard of it. It's called Stand Up Nation with Greg Giraldo, and it was essentially it was a talk show, but it was an interstitial show. So they had their Friday night stand-up block. And so it would be like Greg would do an opening monologue, and then he would throw to a stand-up special. And then after the stand-up special, he would interview Patrice O'Neill, and then he would throw to the next stand-up special.
Just saying names is breaking my heart, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Those two were like in high school, those two were my guys who I just like so looked up to.
Greg was great. Like, both those guys passing was a tragedy.
Yeah.
I never really knew Patrice, but Greg was like a really warm-hearted person. Like he was great. But he was a great comedian, and he was always like the funniest guy in the room. Absolutely. But yeah, so it was just like this show, and comedians hated it because their specials were on, but they couldn't say
interrupting the bits.
Yeah, but they couldn't say exactly when it was on because it would be like delayed by 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and also all the what do you call them? The fucking channel guides.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of saying like Comedy Central presents whatever Todd Barry, it would just be a 2.5 hour block that said stand up with Greg Giraldo. They couldn't tell people to watch it or to tape it or anything.
So what year was this? What year was this?
This is probably I'm gonna say 2005.
I was gonna say that timeline lines up because I remember I watched Friday night stand up every night in high school. And when I got to college in 2005, I didn't have a whole TV cable set up.
Right.
So because I was like, how the hell did I never hear of this show? I watched that all the time. Yeah, okay.
Everybody never heard of this show. So.
Sorry. I promise if I were a couple years older or a couple years younger, I would have. I would be that guy.
All right. I promise if you were a couple years older, you would have been getting laid on a Friday night instead of
or younger. Don't worry about that.
Or younger.
Actually, I want to ask because you had mentioned being on TV and getting laid. And excuse me if this is too personal, but growing up, was your love life particularly full of strife, or because when you said it so casually, you said it with the said it the way like Brad Pitt would say it. So were you always getting laid, or was this something that made you jaded because you couldn't believe the success that you were having?
No, I mean when I was growing up, when I was in high school, definitely I was as Aerosmith would say, I was a high school loser, never made it with the ladies. But being a comedian, and I really regret saying it so casually, but it was
no, it's fine. It was funny.
I should explain to the people at home. It's early on a Sunday, so, but yeah, it's just being a comedian really just helps in terms of when it's just easy. It creates a situation where it's easy.
You're all muted again. You're still muted. There you go.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry about that.
I lost it at creates a situation, and I really want you to finish that sentence.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I can't hear you through my... Hold on one second.
Okay.
All right, what's going on here?
Welcome to the technical difficulties hour.
Yeah, exactly. I apologize.
You can hear me now, right?
Yeah, because I can't hear you through my headphones anymore. But but you can still hear me through. Can you hear me through this mic?
Yeah, I can hear you through that mic.
Okay. Then I'll just talk. But
okay.
What was I saying? Oh yeah. So
mm-hmm.
Actually, give me 1 second. I know how to.
While you're doing that, I know that.
There we go. I got it. Okay. So essentially, nope, that doesn't help either. Okay. Essentially, just like. Being a comedian creates a situation where you are where the ice has already been broken, like people like
that's
comics
the hardest part if you have a good personality.
Yeah, but it's you actually have your better personality on display.
That's kind of what I'm saying. I found that if you rely on your personality, what you end up having is the ice breaking is the hardest fucking part. And if that's already been established, I was always able to meet girls in a class, at a job, at whatever, where we're all, where we're all already kind of we're here. It's not like I'm actively making the effort to specifically talk to you because we're all here to meet people. No, we all have to be here. So it's easy to break that ice. And then if you have a good personality, you go on. You were also on TV, which is awesome.
Well, that's the thing. in hindsight, that was a little bit gross, but I mean, but the thing is, like, women really do like guys who are nice and funny, and so you're in a situation where you're able to control how people see you, and so you're able to like present yourself as the nice, funny guy, and
has that always been true to your personality, or is that what you play up for stage stuff?
Well, yeah, you always play it up. That's like you always play up your best aspects on stage for sure.
I guess here's what I'm getting at then. I've heard this a lot from comics, that it can be a lot tougher once you get off stage because the people expect you to keep up that personality. So when I ask you, and this isn't whether on TV, not on TV, I think it's just interesting to talk about the dynamics of how you meet people as an art, how you meet women or guys, if you're whatever. Right. Then, by the way, whatever I meant as woman, not like, whatever. If you're gay, whatever.
No, I get it.
If you're meeting someone you want to sleep with in any circumstance, if you're an artist, whether that's music, comedy, anything that brings people to see your art or where you are performing in some nature, it definitely changes the dynamic because you're on stage, you're breaking the ice in that way. Do you ever struggle with that, where you feel like after you get off stage, whether it's somebody's interested in you, that you have to kind of keep up that person that you are on stage, or are you easily able to transition into how you are, just like typically regress to the mean, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I'm lucky in that, like I am kind of myself on stage, but it's like amplifying the things I like about myself, So when I get off stage, it's not like there's a dramatic transition and suddenly I'm like slapping people around. I'm not like Sinatra. I'm like smacking people around or whatever. So I mean, that in that sense, yeah. I mean, but I don't. I mean, you were in bands, right?
Yeah.
You just don't get women as easily as people assume you do.
Oh, absolutely. There's no. Whenever I would hear people saying like, "Oh, people only do band stuff to get girls and money," I was like, "Where are the girls and where are the money?" Because I haven't seen any of that at all.
First of all, you play bass, so
there's a guitar over there. I made the switch after I got engaged. Then I made the switch. Yeah, the real smart
switch to bass.
Yeah, switch from bass to guitar.
No longer looking for women.
Huh? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I mean the thing is like so then like you really have to work at it, which is the other thing. Like you really have to like hang out by the ladies' room and just happen to like yeah, like, oh hey, you're at the show, thanks for coming, like, and do that with every woman who comes across your path until you find the one who's drunk and willing to sleep with you. So there's that,
So there's that.
No, I mean, it's like,
yeah.
So the being on TV thing kind of eliminated work, which was nice, but other than that, like it's just the same dynamic. And then there's a point where you say to yourself, like, well, Jesus, I'm that guy,
So that's interesting. So do you feel, God, that's okay. So just to try to put the piece, I'm trying to put like piece together your, I guess, timeline of, right. of so in high school, you didn't have such a great time as far as that was concerned. I'm basing this solely on your Aerosmith quote, right, which is how I base everyone's lives on what Aerosmith songs they quote. And then you start doing stand-up, and you're actually from a pretty young age getting, work in some aspect or another.
Right.
And so you're in your mid-20s, and now you're actually, I guess, whatever, not maybe the time.
But what's funny, though, is like in terms of my love life, I really wasn't confident, funnily enough, until I had this shitty day job like before Best Week Ever. Like,
yeah.
It just, I mean, I would date before then, like, but there was just something like before I was on TV, or before I really like started achieving any kind of success, where like kind of a switch flipped in me, and I just like suddenly was like, fuck it,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna go on dates and have a good time,
Yeah.
And I did a lot of internet dating for a year, which is funny because I was broke. You know, I had no money, but just suddenly I was just like, I'm going to go on these dates and see what happens. You know.
You also on your website, one of your social media things you can go to, I think, is OkCupid.
Yeah,
that made me laugh so hard.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's really funny. And then the best thing is I can see kind of like people will click from my website to my OkCupid, and then I can literally see who's visiting me.
That's a better like analytics tool than what any other
really
website has. Okay, well, so what's really interesting to me now when you're talking about that couple of year span where you're able to basically get laid, you're on TV, things are going well, but you just said then you kind of started to feel like the gross guy. Do you suppose, am I accurate so far in my interpretation of?
Yeah.
So do you suppose that, and because of, I mean, I've only known you for 45 minutes, but you seem like you're genuinely funny, genuinely nice. You're willing to come on this podcast, which already makes you a A+ in my book. But like, so it seems like growing up, the personality traits that you formed, being funny, being nice, being like kind and considerate, led you to a point where when you're actually able to live the life of the quote unquote alpha male guy kind of thing,
right?
You started to go like, this feels a little icky because you grew. I don't know. It's interesting to me. It's almost like you get this, what most people in the world consider an objective success in life, being able to get women. But in doing so, your entire past is kind of telling you it's like a cognitive dissonance where you're just like, this is weird. Why is this happening kind of thing?
I don't think so. I mean, part of it was I was on Best Week Ever, and then suddenly I wasn't, and it became work again. But then I toured. I don't know. I mean, the truth is, like, I do not regret my 20s and early 30s at all. Like, I had a lot of fun, and I partied a lot. It was a good time, but there's also a point where you kind of have to grow up a little bit and say like, well, what I wanted when I was 25 isn't the same thing you want at 35. There's a point where you say like, okay, well maybe it's time for me to settle down a little bit and actually build a life for myself and not just go out and get wasted every night and try to get laid and get in trouble and have adventures.
Yeah, you got in trouble?
Yeah, I mean, just in, my personal life, not really.
Oh, okay, so not things that are fun and funny to talk about.
No, I didn't get arrested or anything like that. No, I didn't sleep with a judge's daughter or anything like that. It was just more like when I say trouble, it's just more like you wake up one day and you say, "Wow, I'm living at the age of 34 the exact same way I did at the age of 24." And that's when the rock and roll lifestyle isn't as much fun, as you would know.
See, well, I've tried to.
You're engaged, so you.
Well, I'm married now. That's
you're married, okay.
Like, well, so yeah, because that's interesting. I've always lived, and I have like a weird inverse regret. It's not even whatever. I'll explain it. You tell me what my problem is.
Okay.
I've been living my life with a foot in both camps. I went to college and studied something that I was interested in that I knew I could get a job in. Meanwhile, psychology.
Okay.
Which is what I do my day job stuff now.
Okay.
So I went to college, and while I was in college, I did well in college, but my spare time, like just about all of my spare time after the first year or two, went into touring. Every summer I tried to tour as much as I could, every break. Every day after I finished like classes, I would go and promote my band on, at the time it was MySpace. And just like that kind of stuff. Like, so I was trying to keep, both things happening. And then after I graduated, I had a few years where I was like, I don't want to, I'm too tired of doing all this music stuff.
Right.
So I basically took a couple years just to like, party and hang out and work a job. And then it was about 3 or 4 years ago when I kind of got back into it and really pushed the band. But at the same time, and meanwhile, I had this serious relationship. I had gotten engaged. I went to grad school. Like, I'm married with a kid now. And so it's like, I did both things, but now I'm just like, shit. I probably eliminated my chances, or in my mid-20s, of being able to really do something creative that I want to do for a living. As far as musically right. For sure, because it was like living with with a foot in both camps.
Right.
Eliminates the ability to tour like crazy, to have a normal life. It's just I just didn't make the specific sacrifices that are really required to make in order to give yourself the best odds of succeeding in music.
I mean, I don't agree with that. I mean, just pointing to comedy. Look at guys like Ray Romano, you know, like those guys just had wives and kids. And in fact, it's easier to be a creative person if there's someone who's like responsible in the relationship, you know, like who, you know, but I mean, the truth is, you know, maybe you would have grounded out in the music scene for 10 years and maybe you would have been like,
I would have been miserable though. You're right. If I woke up at 35 and literally was just like being the equivalent of the open micer for 15 years, I'd probably be.
Or you could have been really successful and then, you know, like had a bad drug problem. And
I would probably have, you know what? It's so funny. Sometimes I think about it. I'm like, man, if I was just like on my own with because I didn't do any drugs or drink until I was 22.
Right.
And so like, because of that, it's kind of like the whole like Catholic schoolgirl thing where it's like you're under such strict restrictions and then you get out on your own and you just go absolutely apeshit. I don't know if that stereotype is still a thing, but like that's probably would have been me. I'm like, man, if I didn't do any of all this like responsible stuff, I'd be like in a gutter somewhere. Like it would be, I have no control.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is like, you could have been really successful. You could have, you know, you might be in a touring band right now, you know, breaking even. I mean, you never know. And the other thing is you're 29. So it's like you have
29. Yeah.
You're 29. You have so much time in your life to, you know, to really make a go of it and work as a psychologist. I mean,
yeah, you're a really good therapist. If you ever need a job, let me know. And come on down.
Yeah. I mean, like most therapists, I don't have my own life together, but
that is not inaccurate.
But I mean, the thing is like, for me, it's just, there's so many things that I could have done or probably should have done, but I've just decided not to have any regrets about it because, you know, the truth is you could do what seemed like the right thing that someone else did that made them successful, and maybe it wouldn't make you successful, you know?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I love that what Will Ferrell's dad said to him about when he told him he wanted to do comedy and acting. Do you know that story at all? It's just he told his dad, who was also a performer, I think so, or a dentist, doesn't matter. So he told his dad he wanted to be a performer or a comedian, whatever. And his dad said, I know you have the talent to make it. You're incredible. I know that. Just know that I know that. But it's completely random. It's such a crapshoot that even if you don't make it, it doesn't matter. It's okay.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, because it's all random.
And so, like, the thing is, if you're having fun and not worrying about success, that actually shows.
Yeah.
And that actually makes your craft better. But it's the hardest thing on earth to say, well, I don't give a shit if this never goes any further than this. You know, like I'm recording another album at the end of the year, and then who knows what, you know, and then I'm probably going to move to LA next year. And then,
nice.
Then I don't know, maybe in 5 years I'll be in grad school, you know?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, so that's really cool that you can look at it like that. And I definitely agree. I think once you have enough, it's weird. It's like once you have enough, like a little enough taste of success to feel confident, but enough taste of failure to understand that it's not the end of the world. Yeah. I feel like that's when you could, as far as with me musically, like what's funny is the band I'm in now, we're doing better than any band I've ever been in, and it's not close. And it's the band I went into going, fuck it, I'm just gonna have fun. I'm not gonna try too hard. But of course, that's how it works.
You have a stable life and you have a job, and so like, if this band doesn't work out, you're not going to be starving, and your kid's going to have diapers, you know?
Well, maybe. I don't know. Me and my wife haven't decided if we want to diaper our children. That's a big discussion.
We want an outdoor child.
Community. Yeah. We want a free range child, really. Grass fed, farm to table, you know, womb to table.
I do see the little playpen right there.
Yeah, this is our guest room.
Okay.
We have all sorts of, yeah. That's the other thing is I'm too pampered now. I feel like if I went to, no. Well,
no,
okay.
but I have to go in a minute, unfortunately. Yeah. But the thing I'm going to say is like, I have an album that did well. I have this concert film I did.
I meant to ask you about that. Yeah.
I've been on TV. I've hit a lot of the benchmarks of a successful comedian, but I don't have money. So like that's like very much on my mind where it's like, okay, I've been doing this for 20 years. I have a lot to show for it. But now I need to, take this all up to the next level. Yeah. Or I need to say, this was a fun part of my life. What's next?
God, that's so interesting. God, by the way, thank you. I'm going to ask for your plugs and what what you are coming up with next. Thank you so much, not only for coming on, but like you got insanely real, and I really appreciate you just being willing to kind of just open up and talk about all that stuff. That's really cool.
I'm glad you like that, because sometimes when I'm on a podcast and they want a comedian, and I just want to talk.
They want to riff and shit.
Yeah, they want to riff, and it's very disappointing. Because I was on one recently where this woman, the host, was really just like, "Oh wow, you're in a serious mood," and I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, that's how I am off stage. I'm not, We
wanted the guy who was on stage.
Yeah, we want 1,000 jokes about Donald Trump or whatever, and it's like."
Well, okay, yeah. So first off, tell us what's next for you. How are you monetizing this amazing career? By the way, because everything I checked out that I was able to find online, I haven't gone through the whole record. This is called Comedian, right?
Comedian, yes.
Yeah. But you're unbelievably funny. You're super fucking funny, and that the one that really stood out for me, maybe because it was the first one I saw, but the Dare bit was so about Dare in schools was so relatable and so like fucking on the nose, and I just kept watching. Like the acting you were doing was great in it. Like the whole thing was fantastic. Definitely check out Liam's stuff, but also that bit if you want to find it on YouTube. I think it's just called Dare Officer.
Yeah. And it's part of the Tell Your Friends, the concert film that I did with Reggie Watts and Kristen Schaal and Kurt Braunohler and Christian Finnegan, all my famous friends, and I'm going to be in LA for a month. The month of October. So if you go to heyitsliam.com, you can check out all my LA dates if you're out there. I'll be in Baltimore.
Nice.
Well,
when and where?
Outside Baltimore, in Magooby's Joke House. On
you call that Baltimore?
Yeah, the 20 minutes out of Baltimore. Are you in Baltimore proper?
I'm right south of Baltimore.
Okay.
Yeah. So what was the date again? I totally talked over it.
No, sorry. Magooby's Joke House. You can go to Magooby's MAGOOBYS.com. I don't know if they're selling tickets yet, but it's on the calendar. I'm taping my album sometime, I think, in December, early December or early January. I'm still looking for a venue. But again, if you go to my website, heyitsliam.com, you can follow me on Twitter at heyitsliam. You can follow me on Instagram at Radio Liam. If you really want to do me a favor, find the guy on Instagram who has Hey It's Liam, who has 12 followers and never posts pictures, and report him. I want his profile taken down so I can get it.
Yeah. And what's your podcast as well?
It's called Tell Your Friends, History's Greatest Podcast. This Monday, we should have Tom Leopold, who is a writer. He wrote for Seinfeld and Cheers. He was just like a legendary TV writer. We've had musicians like Mike Doty, Catherine Popper, who's a fellow bass player. She said my favorite thing about bass players. She said someone when she was young told her the bass player's job is to get the drummer laid. But yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to talk to a lot of very well-known people. Lewis Black, Gilbert Gottfried. You can go to tyfpodcast.com for all that stuff.
And send me. I mean, I have most of the links, but if you want to send them to me, I'll post them all up with this episode that I'll post later today.
Awesome, I'll do that today.
All right, sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You're such a funny guy. Such a great story.
Try too hard. I I didn't feel like you tried too hard. I was a little disappointed.
That's because I had this year I got a little bit of success in small areas, which has counterbalanced my failure, and I'm not trying as hard anymore.
Doing what? The music?
Both music, and I've had a couple of my like personal, no like celebrity names or anything, but some of my like personal like musical influences and like behind the scenes people who've been on my podcast. And I've also gotten to interview a couple of famous people, and it's a little validating when
people you've interviewed.
You know, ever heard of a band called Man Overboard?
Yes.
Their lead singer came on our podcast once, and that was the big name. That was just like, wow, all right, I guess I get to hang out with a celebrity for an hour and a half. That's pretty fucking cool.
It's always astonishing when that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got Robert Smigel to do, as you saw on my website, like Robert Smigel did a headline to benefit as Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. And then I was able to write jokes for him about myself, and that blew my mind. That was that's still one of my top 10 life experiences. You know, so it's always great when you get to actually work with or talk to someone like that you really like admire and respect, you know?
That's so awesome. God damn. Yeah, no matter, you do have a storied history, and if you ever end up in grad school, you're going to be the guy with the best stories, and it's not going to be close.
Dude, if I'm ever the guy in grad school, I'm never going to tell anybody. I never tell anyone I work with that I do comedy or what my life is like. Here's the real glamour. I'm late. I got to go to my parents' house and help my mom do yard work.
Oh, okay.
So just know, no matter how successful you get out there, kids, there's always a point where you got to just fucking do what your mother tells you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Check out Liam. I'll post all his links with this, and this will be up later today. Thanks so much for coming, man.
And I'll post links. I'll do it Tuesday when everyone's not on holiday, when everyone's back at work.
Oh, that's a good call. I'll repost it all then too. All right. Nice call. Awesome. All right. Thanks, have a great day. See you, man.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye.